I died clutching my mother's funeral program, tears still wet on my cheeks, listening to my father laugh with his mistress in the next room about how the burden was finally gone. But death wasn't the end. It was my beginning. Let me paint you a picture of my previous life because trust me, it's a masterpiece of betrayal that would make Shakespeare weep. My name is Chen Lila, and in my first go around at life, I watched my father choose his 25-year-old girlfriend over my dying mother every single day for 8 months. 8 whole months. Picture this. Mom's lying in a hospital bed, bald from chemo, throwing up everything she tries to eat, and where's dear old dad? Oh, he's taking Sophia, that's the homewrecker's name, to fancy restaurants and weekend getaways. While mom begged me to ask him to visit, he was posting Instagram stories of champagne toasts and couples massages. Lila, honey, mom whispered to me one particularly bad day, her voice barely audible over the beeping machines. Do you think your father doesn't love me anymore? I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by his expensive tie and drag him to her bedside. Instead, I lied. Of course he loves you, Mom. He's just dealing with stress differently. God, I was such an idiot. The real kicker? When the doctor said Mom needed an experimental treatment that insurance wouldn't cover, $200,000, which was pocket change for our family, Dad suddenly developed selective hearing. We can't afford that right now, Lila, he said, not even looking up from his phone where he was texting his precious Sophia. We have to be realistic. Realistic. Meanwhile, he just bought his girlfriend a BMW. Mom died on a Tuesday. I know because I was holding her hand when she took her last breath, still asking if Dad was coming. He wasn't. He was at some corporate retreat with Sophia, claiming he couldn't get away. The funeral was a joke. Dad showed up with red eyes, not from crying, but from the drinks he'd had at brunch with his girlfriend. And get this, he had the audacity to bring Sophia to Mom's funeral. Introduced her as his close friend who wanted to pay respects. I snapped, completely lost it, screamed at him in front of everyone about what a selfish, cheating bastard he was. He had me escorted out of my own mother's funeral by security. 3 months later, I wrapped my car around a tree. Wasn't intentional. I was just so angry, so broken, so tired of breathing in a world where good people like Mom suffered while parasites like Dad thrived. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of whatever comes after death, I woke up in my old bedroom, in my 18-year-old body, 5 years before Mom's diagnosis. At first, I thought I was having some kind of stress-induced breakdown, but no. I could remember everything. Every cruel word, every missed hospital visit, every lie Dad told. And I could smell bacon cooking downstairs, which meant Mom was making breakfast, alive and healthy and humming off-key like she always did. I ran downstairs so fast I nearly broke my neck, and there she was. Brown hair in a messy bun, flour on her cheek, flipping pancakes while dancing to some old pop song. Beautiful, healthy, alive. Morning, sleepyhead, she called out cheerfully. Your dad already left for work, but I made extra pancakes because I know you'll want seconds. I burst into tears, just completely broke down right there in the kitchen. Sweetie, what's wrong? Mom rushed over, pancake spatula still in hand, pulling me into one of her legendary bear hugs. How do you explain to someone that you're crying because they're not dead? That you're so relieved to see them healthy you can barely breathe? Just bad dream, I managed. Must have been terrible. You're shaking. If only she knew, but here's the thing about second chances. They come with knowledge. And I knew things. I knew that right now, at this very moment, Dad was probably already flirting with Sophia at his office. I knew that in 2 years he'd start the affair. I knew that in 3 years he'd drain their joint savings for his girlfriend's business venture. And I knew that in 5 years, when Mom got sick, he'd abandon her completely. Unless I stopped him. See, I also remembered something else from my previous life, something I'd only learned at Mom's funeral when a stranger approached me. My father's father, my grandfather Chen Wei Ming, had been trying to contact us for years. Turns out, Dad had been intercepting letters and blocking phone calls from his own father. who happened to be worth about $50 million and had been sending money for my education that Dad had been stealing. In my first life, I learned about grandfather too late. This time, I was going to use every dirty trick in the book. Dad thought he was so smart, playing his little games, manipulating everyone around him. Well, guess what, Daddy dearest? Your daughter just leveled up and now we're playing by my rules. I wiped my tears and hugged Mom tighter. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Now eat your pancakes before they get cold. Oh, I was going to eat my pancakes. And then I was going to serve Dad his just desserts. With a side of complete and utter destruction. Time for some payback. The first thing I did was become the perfect daughter. And I mean perfect. Straight A's, helpful around the house, never missing curfew. Mom was delighted. Dad was suspicious. You're being unusually compliant, he said one evening, watching me clear the dinner table without being asked. Can't a daughter just want to help out? I smiled sweetly. He narrowed his eyes but didn't push it. Good thing, too, because I was busy installing spy equipment throughout the house. Amazing what you can buy online with a fake ID and Mom's credit card. Tiny cameras, voice recorders, the works. 2 weeks into my surveillance operation, I hit the jackpot. Dad was in his home office, door closed, thinking he was so clever. I was in my room, listening through the bug I'd planted, when I heard him on the phone. No, baby, she doesn't suspect anything. Dad's voice came through crystal clear. Maria's too trusting, always has been. My blood boiled. He was talking about Mom like she was some naive idiot, instead of the woman who'd supported his career for 20 years. When can we be together for real? The voice on the other end was young, breathy. Sophia. Soon. I just need to figure out the finances first. The divorce will be expensive, but once I get access to my father's money... Interesting. So he was planning to reconcile with grandfather for the cash. Too bad I was going to beat him to it. I miss you, Sophia whined. This sneaking around is getting old. Trust me, sweetheart, once I'm free from this marriage, we'll have everything we want. The house, the money, the life we deserve. The life we deserve. What an absolute piece of garbage. I spent the next month gathering evidence. Photos of Dad and Sophia at restaurants. Copies of the expensive gifts he was buying her. Recordings of their phone conversations. The man was thorough in his betrayal. I had to give him that. Meanwhile, I was doing my own detective work on grandfather. Turns out, Chen Wei-ming owned half the textile factories in the state and had been estranged from Dad for over a decade. The family story was that grandfather was a stubborn old man who couldn't forgive past mistakes. What Dad never told us was that those past mistakes involved him embezzling from the family business right after college. I found grandfather's contact information through his company website and called his office. Chen Industries, how may I help you? Hi, this is Chen Lila. I'm Richard Chen's daughter. I was wondering if I could speak with my grandfather about a school project on family history. There was a long pause. Please hold. 20 minutes later, 20 whole minutes, an elderly voice came on the line. Lila, is this really my granddaughter? The pain in his voice almost broke me. Yes, grandfather, I found your information online. I hope it's okay that I called. Okay? Child, I've been trying to reach you and your mother for years. Your father said you never wanted to speak to me. Of course he did. That's not true, grandfather. We never got any messages. Another long pause, then quietly. Would you like to meet? 3 days later, I was sitting in the lobby of the most expensive hotel in the city, waiting for a grandfather I'd never met. When the elevator doors opened, I knew it was him immediately. He looked like an older, more distinguished version of Dad, but with kind eyes instead of calculating ones. Lila? He approached cautiously, like I might disappear. Grandfather. I stood up, suddenly nervous. He pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home. You look just like your grandmother, he whispered. We sat in the hotel's private dining room, and I told him everything. Well, almost everything. Hard to explain the whole died and came back to life thing, so I just said I'd recently discovered Dad's affair and his lies about grandfather. I have proof, I said, sliding a USB drive across the table. of the affair and of him stealing money from accounts with your name on them. Grandfather's face went through several emotions as he watched the videos and listened to the recordings: hurt, anger, disappointment, and finally, cold fury. This is the same pattern, he said quietly. The same lies, the same manipulation. I had hoped, I had hoped having a family would change him. He's gotten worse, I said. Mom doesn't know about any of this. She thinks their marriage is solid. And you want to protect her. I want to destroy him. The words came out harder than I intended. He's going to hurt her, grandfather. He's going to leave her when she needs him most, and I can't let that happen again. Grandfather studied me for a long moment. Again? Oops. I can't let it happen at all. He nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Help me save my mother and make sure Dad gets exactly what he deserves. Grandfather smiled, and for the first time, I saw where Dad might have gotten his cunning from. Except Grandfather's was tempered with actual morals. I think that can be arranged. Mom was in full party planning mode, and it was both heartwarming and heartbreaking to watch. Their 20th wedding anniversary was coming up, and she was determined to make it special. I thought we could do a dinner party, she said, showing me her Pinterest board full of elegant table settings. Just close friends and family. Your father's been working so hard lately, I want to celebrate how far we've come together. If only she knew where his hard work was really taking place. That sounds perfect, Mom. You should invite some of Dad's work colleagues, too. Maybe that new employee he's been mentoring? Mom lit up. Sophia, what a great idea. Richard speaks so highly of her work ethic. I bet he does. The beauty of my plan was its simplicity. I was going to let Dad hang himself with his own rope. All I had to do was create the perfect opportunity and make sure I had cameras rolling. Why don't you tell Dad to bring Sophia as his plus one? I suggested innocently, since she doesn't know many people yet. Mom clapped her hands together. You're so thoughtful, Lila. I'll mention it to him tonight. That evening, I positioned myself at the top of the stairs to eavesdrop on their conversation. A dinner party? Maria, I'm not sure I'm in the mood for entertaining. Oh, come on, honey. It's our anniversary, 20 years. And Lila suggested we invite some of your work friends. That sweet girl Sophia you've been helping with her projects. I could practically hear Dad's internal panic through the ceiling. Sophia, I don't think that's necessary. She's very busy with her own life. Nonsense. The poor girl is new in town and doesn't know anyone. It's the least we can do. Maria, really, I don't think... I already asked Lila to text her the invitation. She seemed so excited. Oh, the silence that followed was delicious. Dad was trapped between his two worlds, and there was no way out that didn't involve exposing himself. When I came downstairs 20 minutes later, Dad cornered me in the kitchen. What exactly did you say to Sophia? His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. Just that Mom wanted to invite her to the anniversary party. Why? Is there a problem? I gave him my most innocent smile. Of course not. I wanted to make sure you gave her the right date. Don't worry, Dad. I made sure she has all the details. The next 2 weeks were torture for Dad and entertainment for me. He kept trying to find ways to uninvite Sophia without raising Mom's suspicions. But Mom had latched onto the idea of being the perfect hostess to his protege. Meanwhile, Sophia was texting him constantly, messages I was intercepting through the spyware I'd installed on his phone. Your wife invited me to dinner? What am I supposed to do? Act normal, just friendly colleague normal. Richard, this is crazy. What if she suspects something? She doesn't suspect anything. Maria's too trusting. There was that phrase again. Too trusting. Like it was Mom's fault for believing her husband's lies. The night of the party, I made sure I looked perfect. Not just pretty. I wanted to look like the devoted daughter, the perfect family they were supposedly celebrating. Our guests started arriving at 7. Work friends, neighbors, a few of Mom's book club ladies. Everyone was commenting on how lovely Mom looked, how happy she seemed. What a wonderful couple she and Dad made. At 7:30, Sophia arrived. And oh my God, she was gorgeous. Long blonde hair, perfect figure, dressed in a red dress that was just professional enough to not scream homewrecker, but definitely said, "Look at me." "You must be Sophia." Mom practically bounced over to greet her. "I'm Maria. Richard has told me so much about your work." "Mrs. Chen, thank you so much for inviting me. Your home is beautiful." I watched Dad during this interaction, and I swear he aged 5 years and 30 seconds. He was trying to play it cool, but I could see the sweat on his forehead. "Sophia, so glad you could make it," he said stiffly, barely making eye contact. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," she replied, and I caught the tiny smirk on her lips. The evening progressed beautifully. Mom played the perfect hostess, making sure everyone felt welcome. Dad tried to avoid being in the same room as Sophia, which was impossible in our house. And I made sure my hidden cameras caught every awkward moment, every longing glance, every time their hands accidentally brushed. Around 9 p.m. during dessert, Mom stood up with a glass of wine. "I wanted to say a few words," she began, and the room quieted down. "20 years ago, I married my best friend. I married a man who promised to love me in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse." Dad's face was pale. Sophia was staring at her dessert plate like it held the secrets of the universe. "Richard, you've been my partner in everything. Building our home, raising our beautiful daughter, supporting each other's dreams. I can't imagine my life without you." She raised her glass. "To 20 more years of love, laughter, and partnership." Everyone toasted. Everyone except Sophia, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable, and Dad, who managed to choke out, "To us." The party wound down around 11 p.m. As guests were leaving, I noticed Sophia lingering, helping Mom clear dishes in the kitchen. "You know, Sophia," Mom said, "you remind me of myself at your age. So ambitious, so focused on building a career. Richard was just telling me how impressed he is with your dedication." "Mr. Chen is a wonderful mentor," Sophia replied, and I saw her glance toward Dad, who was saying goodbye to guests in the living room. "I hope you'll feel comfortable coming to us for anything. Family dinners, advice, whatever you need. We know how hard it can be to be new in town." The guilt on Sophia's face was almost satisfying. Almost. After the last guest left, Mom was glowing. "That was perfect," she said, hugging Dad. "Did you see how well everyone got along? And Sophia's just lovely. So polite, so grateful to be included." "Yeah," Dad managed. "Great party." "I'm exhausted," Mom continued. "I think I'll head up to bed. You two finish cleaning up?" Mom kissed us both goodnight and headed upstairs. The moment her bedroom door closed, Dad turned on me. "What the hell are you playing at?" he hissed. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't give me that innocent act. You know exactly what you're doing." "What am I doing, Dad? Helping Mom throw a nice party for your anniversary? Being friendly to your work colleague? Or are you upset about something else?" His eyes narrowed. "You're walking a very dangerous line, Lila." "Am I, or are you?" We stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Dad stalked off to his office, slamming the door behind him. I finished cleaning the kitchen with a smile on my face. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the really fun part. The heart attack happened on a Thursday. Mom had been feeling tired for a few days, but she chalked it up to post-party exhaustion. I knew better. The stress of maintaining that perfect hostess facade while unknowingly entertaining her husband's mistress had taken its toll. I found her collapsed in the laundry room at 2 p.m. "Mom!" I screamed, dropping to my knees beside her. She was conscious but pale, clutching her chest. "Can't breathe," she gasped. I called 911 while trying to keep her calm, but inside I was screaming. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. In my previous life, Mom didn't get sick for another 2 years. The ambulance arrived in what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. As they loaded Mom onto the stretcher, I called Dad. "Dad, you need to get to the hospital. Mom had a heart attack." "What? Are you sure? Maybe it's just anxiety." "Dad, she's in an ambulance. Get to the hospital now." I rode with Mom, holding her hand as the paramedics worked. She kept trying to talk, but I shushed her. "Save your energy, Mom. Dad's meeting us there." Except he wasn't. We'd been at the hospital for 2 hours. Mom was stable, but needed tests to determine the extent of the damage. I'd texted Dad the room number, called his office, left 3 voicemails, nothing. At hour 3, I decided to track him down myself. The GPS tracker I'd placed in his car, sue me, I was thorough, showed he was at the Riverside Hotel, the same hotel where I'd met grandfather. I took an Uber there, my rage building with every passing block. When I walked into the hotel bar, I saw them immediately. Dad and Sophia sitting in a corner booth, her hand covering his, having what looked like an intense conversation. I pulled out my phone and started recording as I walked over. Well, 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 what do we have here? They both looked up, and Dad's face went white. Lila, what are you doing here? Funny, I was going to ask you the same thing. See, Mom's in the hospital with a heart attack, and I've been calling you for hours. Sophia tried to slide her hand away, but I'd already caught it on video. It's not what it looks like, Dad stammered. Really? Because it looks like you're on a date with your employee while your wife is in the cardiac unit. Lila, please let me explain. Explain what? Explain why you're here instead of the hospital? Explain why your colleague is holding your hand? Or maybe you want to explain why you've been lying to Mom for months. Other patrons were starting to stare. Sophia looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. You're making a scene, Dad hissed. I'm making a scene? Your wife is in the hospital. I was shouting now, and I didn't care. What kind of man chooses his girlfriend over his wife having a heart attack? She's not my... Don't you dare lie to me right now. I held up my phone. Smile for the camera, Sophia. I'm sure Mom would love to see how concerned you are about her health. Sophia finally found her voice. This is inappropriate. I think I should leave. Yeah, you should. You should have left the moment you decided to screw a married man. She grabbed her purse and practically ran out of the bar. Dad started to follow her. If you leave this bar to chase after her instead of coming to the hospital with me, I will make sure Mom sees every text, every photo, every recording I have of your affair. Dad stopped. You've been spying on me? Someone had to. Clearly, you can't be trusted to do the right thing on your own. The drive to the hospital was silent. Dad kept checking his phone, probably worried about Sophia, while I stared out the window, planning his complete destruction. When we finally arrived, Mom was awake and asking for him. Richard, she said, relief flooding her voice. I was so worried when you didn't answer your phone. I'm sorry, honey. I was in a meeting with no cell service. Even now, even after everything, he was lying to her face. The doctor says it was stress-related, Mom continued. Can you believe that? I thought I was handling everything so well. You are, Dad said, taking her hand. You're the strongest person I know. I wanted to throw up. Over the next few days, as Mom recovered, I watched Dad's double life become increasingly complicated. He had to be the devoted husband at the hospital while also managing Sophia's growing impatience with the situation. Her texts were getting more demanding. When can we talk? This is insane. I can't keep pretending nothing happened. I need to know where we stand. Meanwhile, Dad was playing the concerned husband perfectly, bringing Mom flowers, staying late at the hospital, even sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside her bed. But I knew it was all an act. Because every time he thought no one was looking, he was texting Sophia back. Give me time to figure this out. Maria can't handle stress right now. Soon, baby, I promise. The day Mom was discharged, the doctor pulled me aside. Your mother needs to avoid stress, he said seriously. Another episode like this could be much more serious. Make sure she takes her medications and gets plenty of rest. What about going back to work? Not for at least a month, and when she does, it should be limited hours. That evening, as I was helping Mom get settled at home, she brought up something that made my blood run cold. Lila, honey, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. What is it, Mom? At the hospital, when your father finally arrived, he smelled like perfume, not mine. My heart stopped. Mom. And I've been thinking about the anniversary party, the way he acted around Sophia, the way she looked at him. She knew. Deep down, she knew. I don't want to believe it, she continued quietly. 20 years of marriage, and I don't want to believe my husband would do that to me. I sat on the edge of her bed, torn between protecting her and telling her the truth. What do you want me to say, Mom? I want you to tell me I'm being paranoid. I want you to tell me that stress is making me imagine things. I took her hand. What do you want to know? Is your father having an affair? The moment of truth. In my previous life, I'd never had this conversation. Mom had died before she could confront the reality of Dad's betrayal. Yes, I said quietly. Yes, he is. Mom closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. How long? A few months? Do you have proof? I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos I'd taken at the hotel. Dad and Sophia holding hands, looking like a couple. Mom stared at the image for a long time. When she finally looked up, her eyes were dry but determined. I want to see everything. Showing Mom the evidence was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. We sat in her bedroom for 3 hours, going through photos, recordings, and text messages. With each piece of proof, I watched 20 years of trust crumble in her eyes. Maria's too trusting, she repeated after listening to one of Dad's phone calls. Is that really how he sees me? As some naive fool? Mom, no, let me hear the rest. The worst part was watching her blame herself. I should have seen the signs, she said, staring at a photo of Dad buying Sophia expensive jewelry. The late nights, the new clothes, the way he stopped touching me. This isn't your fault, isn't it? Maybe if I'd been a better wife, more exciting, more... Stop! I grabbed her hands. Mom, look at me. You are an amazing wife. You've supported his career, raised his daughter, built a beautiful home. You are not responsible for his choices. She was quiet for a long time. Then, what am I supposed to do now? What do you want to do? I want to confront him. I want to scream and throw things and make him explain why I wasn't enough. Okay, let's do that. Mom blinked. Really? Really, but first I want to show you something else. I pulled out the information I'd gathered about grandfather. The letters Dad had intercepted, the money he'd stolen, the trust fund that was supposed to be for my education. He's been lying about your grandfather too? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. For years, grandfather's been trying to contact us, and Dad's been blocking it. He's also been stealing money from accounts with my name on them. How much money? Try $50,000 so far. Mom stared at the bank statements. We could have paid for the best doctors, the best treatments. If I'd gotten sicker, we could have afforded anything. That was the plan. Grandfather wants to help us. You've been in contact with him? For a few weeks now. He's wonderful, Mom. He's nothing like Dad said. For the first time since seeing the evidence, Mom smiled. I'd like to meet him. I'll arrange it, but first, let's deal with Dad. We decided to wait until the weekend. Dad had plans to work late on Friday, which we both knew meant a date with Sophia. The confrontation would happen Saturday morning when he was relaxed and off guard. Friday evening, Mom was quiet during dinner. Dad kept asking if she was feeling all right, playing the concerned husband. Just tired, she said. I think I'll go to bed early. After Mom went upstairs, Dad immediately reached for his phone. Working late again tonight? I asked innocently. Yeah, big project deadline. Might be very late. Well, have fun with your project. He gave me a sharp look but didn't say anything. After he left, I went upstairs to check on Mom. She was sitting by the window, still dressed, watching his car pull out of the driveway. How long do you think they'll be? She asked. A few hours, probably. Why? Mom stood up with more energy than I'd seen from her since the heart attack. Because I want to pack his things. We spent the next 3 hours going through Dad's belongings. Mom was methodical, folding his clothes neatly, packing his toiletries carefully. She wasn't angry packing, she was sad packing, and somehow that was worse. 20 years, she said, holding up their wedding photo. 20 years, and it meant nothing to him. It meant something. He's just too selfish to appreciate what he had. When Dad came home at 2 a.m., reeking of Sophia's perfume, he found his suitcases neatly stacked in the hallway. Maria, what's going on? Mom appeared at the top of the stairs in her robe, and I couldn't help but admire how composed she looked. We need to talk, Richard. It's 2 a.m. Can't this wait until morning? No, it can't. Dad climbed the stairs slowly, probably trying to figure out how much trouble he was in. Mom led him to their bedroom and closed the door. I positioned myself outside to listen. I know about Sophia, Mom said without preamble. Silence. Richard, I know about the affair. I have photos, recordings, text messages. I know everything. Maria, let me explain. Explain what? Explain how you've been lying to me for months? Explain how you chose to be with her instead of coming to the hospital when I had a heart attack? That's not, I didn't choose. You did choose. You choose her every day. You chose her over your wife, over your marriage, over 20 years of partnership. I heard Dad's voice get defensive. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. The stress at work, your health issues, Lila's college expenses. Don't you dare blame this on me or our daughter. This is about you and your choices. Fine. Yes, I made mistakes, but Maria, I love you. I want to work this out. Do you? Do you really? Because your girlfriend's been texting you asking when you're going to leave me? You read my texts? Our daughter read your texts. Our daughter who's been watching you destroy this family while I was in the hospital. Dad's voice dropped. Lila's been spying on me? Lila's been protecting me, which is more than I can say for my husband. There was a long pause, then Dad tried a different approach. Maria, you're not thinking clearly. The heart attack, the stress, the medications, they're affecting your judgment. We can get counseling. We can work through this. My judgment is perfectly clear, clearer than it's been in months. So what? You want a divorce? You want to throw away 20 years over a mistake? A mistake? Mom's voice was incredulous. Richard, you didn't accidentally fall into bed with her. You pursued her, lied to me, spent our money on her, and chose her over me when I needed you most. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Fine, what do you want? I want you to leave, tonight. Go to your girlfriend's house or a hotel or wherever you want, but I want you out of this house. This is my house too. And we'll discuss that with lawyers, but tonight I want you gone. 20 minutes later, Dad was loading his suitcases into his car. He tried to talk to me as I stood in the doorway. Lila, this is temporary. Your mother and I just need some space to work things out. Sure, Dad. Good luck with that. I know you're angry, but this is between your mother and me. Don't let her turn you against me. She didn't turn me against you. You did that all by yourself. He stared at me for a moment, then got in his car and drove away. Mom appeared beside me in the doorway. How do you feel? I asked. Scared, sad, relieved. She paused. Free. What's next? Next, I want to meet my father-in-law, and then I want to figure out how to build a life without Richard. We'll build it together. She put her arm around me. Together. Grandfather arrived at our house on Sunday afternoon, carrying flowers for Mom and looking nervous as a teenager on a first date. I answered the door and immediately pulled him into a hug. Grandfather, this is my mom, Maria. Mom had dressed carefully for the meeting, not fancy, but her best casual outfit, and she'd done her hair and makeup. She wanted to make a good impression. Maria, Grandfather said, offering her the flowers. I'm so sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. I'm not, Mom replied, surprising us both. I wish we'd met years ago, but I'm grateful we're meeting now. We sat in the living room, and I watched these two people who should have known each other for decades try to find common ground. Richard told me you didn't want anything to do with me, Grandfather said quietly. He said you and Lila preferred to keep your distance from family drama. Mom's face darkened. Family drama? Mr. Chen, I didn't even know you existed until 3 days ago. Please call me Wei Ming, and I was afraid of that. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. These are copies of every letter I've sent over the past 10 years. Birthday cards for Lila, Christmas presents, graduation money. I even tried hiring a private investigator to make sure you were receiving them. Mom flipped through the folder, her eyes widening. He intercepted all of this? I assume so. The investigator told me Richard claimed you'd moved and left no forwarding address. We've lived in the same house for 15 years. Grandfather's jaw tightened. He's been playing the same game since he was a teenager. Lies, manipulation, theft. Theft? Mom looked confused. I pulled out the financial documents I'd shown her earlier. Dad's been stealing from accounts Grandfather set up for my education. About $50,000 so far. 50,000? Mom turned to Grandfather. You set up accounts for Lila? A college fund and a trust that would mature when she turned 25. Richard was supposed to inform me when she was ready for college so we could discuss her options. Instead, he forged documents to access the money himself, I added. Mom was quiet for a long moment, processing this new betrayal. Is there anything he didn't lie about? I'm beginning to wonder, Grandfather said grimly. Maria, I want you to know that none of this is your fault. My son has always been selfish, but I had hoped marriage and fatherhood would change him. It should have, Mom said, but I think having a family just gave him more people to manipulate. Well, that stops now. Grandfather's voice was firm. I've already contacted my lawyers about the stolen money. And Maria, I want to make sure you and Lila are financially secure during this transition. I can't accept your money. You're not accepting charity. You're accepting support from family, which is what Richard should have been providing all along. We spent the next 2 hours talking. Grandfather told us about his business, his late wife, my grandmother, who I learned loved to paint, and his regrets about losing touch with us. Mom shared stories about my childhood, her art, and her dreams of opening a small gallery someday. You're an artist? Grandfather's eyes lit up. My wife was a painter too. Watercolors, mostly landscapes. I'd love to see her work sometime. I'd love to show you. Perhaps you could visit my house next weekend? As the afternoon wore on, I could see the genuine affection developing between them. Mom was relaxing for the first time in weeks, and Grandfather looked happier than I'd seen him since we met. Around evening, Dad's car pulled into the driveway. Expecting someone? Grandfather asked, noticing our sudden tension. That would be Richard, Mom said dryly. He probably forgot something. Dad walked in without knocking. Apparently, he still considered this his house, and stopped dead when he saw Grandfather sitting in his favorite chair. Dad, what are you doing here? Hello, Richard. I came to meet my daughter-in-law and spend time with my granddaughter. You remember them, don't you? Your family? Dad's face cycled through several emotions: shock, anger, fear, and finally calculation. Of course I remember them. I didn't know you were coming. Why would you? You've been intercepting my calls and letters for years. That's not, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you told me they didn't want to see me? Can you explain why you've been stealing from Lila's college fund? Can you explain why you're living in a hotel while your wife recovers from a heart attack? Dad looked between the three of us, realizing he was completely outmaneuvered. This is a private family matter. You're right, Grandfather stood up. It is a family matter, which is why I'm here and why you need to leave. This is my house. Actually, Mom said calmly, I checked with a lawyer. Since you voluntarily left and you're not contributing to household expenses, you don't have the right to enter without permission. You called a lawyer? I called several lawyers, divorce attorneys specifically. The blood drained from Dad's face. Maria, let's not do anything hasty. Hasty? Richard, you've been cheating on me for months. You chose your girlfriend over your wife having a heart attack. You've been stealing from our daughter and lying about your own father. What exactly would be hasty about ending this marriage? Dad tried a different approach. Dad, surely you understand that marriages go through rough patches. Maria and I just need to work through some issues. The only issue, Grandfather said coldly, is that you're a liar and a cheat, just like you were at 22. Some people don't change, Richard. You're one of them. You don't understand the whole situation. I understand enough. I understand that you stole money intended for your daughter's education. I understand that you prevented your wife from knowing her own family. And I understand that you're exactly the same selfish person you've always been. Dad's phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it automatically, and I caught a glimpse of the sender. Sophia. Is that her? Mom asked. Your girlfriend? Dad quickly put the phone away. It's work. It's Sunday evening, Richard. What kind of work emergency requires immediate attention on Sunday evening? Grandfather was watching this exchange with interest. Who's Sophia? Richard's mistress, Mom said matter-of-factly. A lovely young woman from his office who he's been seeing for several months. I see. Grandfather's voice was arctic. So while your wife was having a heart attack, you were with your mistress? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Grandfather walked toward the door. Richard, you have 5 minutes to collect whatever you came for, and then I want you out of this house. You can't throw me out of my own home. Watch me. Dad realized he was beaten. He grabbed some papers from his office and headed for the door, but not before trying one last manipulation. Lila, you don't understand what's happening here. Your grandfather and your mother are turning you against me. Nobody's turning me against you, Dad. You're doing that all by yourself. I'm still your father. Are you? Because fathers don't steal from their children. They don't lie to their families. And they don't abandon their wives when they need them most. Dad stared at me for a long moment, then turned and left without another word. After his car disappeared down the street, the three of us sat in silence for a moment. Well, Mom said finally, that went better than expected. Grandfather chuckled. He always was a terrible liar when caught red-handed. What happens now? I asked. Now, Mom said, we figure out how to be a family, the right way this time. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of lawyers, paperwork, and phone calls. Mom filed for divorce on Monday, citing adultery and financial misconduct. By Wednesday, Grandfather's legal team had filed charges against Dad for embezzlement. By Friday, Dad's world was completely falling apart. I know this because Sophia was documenting the whole thing in her text to him. Richard, they froze your accounts? How is that even legal? The police want to interview me about what? I don't know anything about your family's money. I can't keep staying at the Four Seasons if you can't pay for it. Why didn't you tell me your father was rich? This changes everything. That last text was particularly interesting. Apparently, Sophia hadn't realized the extent of Grandfather's wealth. She'd been planning to divorce Dad after bleeding him dry, but now she was recalculating. Unfortunately for her, Dad was recalculating too. I was eavesdropping, naturally, when he called her Friday night. Sophia, we need to talk. Finally! Richard, this is insane. First your wife kicks you out, then your father gets involved, and now there are lawyers everywhere. What is happening? What's happening is that my family found out about us. Okay, so what's the plan? When are you filing for divorce? There was a long pause. I'm not. What do you mean you're not? I mean, I'm not filing for divorce. I'm going to try to reconcile with Maria. The silence on Sophia's end was deafening. You're going to what? Think about it, Sophia. If I fight the divorce, I might be able to keep the house, get some kind of settlement. If my father forgives me, I get back into the family money. But if I divorce Maria now, I lose everything. So where does that leave me? We'll have to cool things off for a while, just until I can stabilize my situation. Cool things off? Richard, I gave up other opportunities for you. I turned down job offers because you said we had a future together. We do have a future, just not right now. Not right now. I'm 25 years old. I'm not going to wait around indefinitely for a maybe. Sophia, be reasonable. Reasonable. You want reasonable. Here's reasonable. I'm done. Find yourself another mistress to string along while you play happy families. She hung up on him. I had to admire her honestly. Evil, but efficient. Dad, meanwhile, was spiraling. He'd been staying at a budget hotel since the Four Seasons became too expensive, and his attempts to reconcile with Mom were pathetic. He sent flowers with a note. I'm sorry. Please give me another chance. Mom threw them in the trash without reading the card. He called constantly, leaving voicemails. Maria, you're being irrational. We can work this out. Mom changed her phone number. He showed up at the house unannounced. I want to talk to my wife. Grandfather had hired a security company. Dad was escorted off the property. The final straw came when Dad tried to approach me outside school. Lila, you have to help me. Your mother won't listen to reason. Maybe because you're not speaking reasonably, I said, not slowing down. I made mistakes, okay? But I'm still your father. I still love you and your mother. Do you? Because you have a funny way of showing it. What do you want me to do? Grovel? Beg? I'm trying to fix this. I stopped walking and turned to face him. You want to know what I want you to do? Yes. I want you to leave us alone. I want you to stop pretending you care about anyone but yourself. And I want you to face the fact that you destroyed your own family. Lila. No, Dad, you don't get to Lila me. You chose Sophia over Mom. You chose money over integrity. You chose yourself over your family every single time. I can change? And can you? Can you really? Because this is the same pattern grandfather told us about. You lie, you steal, you manipulate, and when you get caught, you promise to change. But you never do. Dad stared at me like I'd slapped him. When did you become so cold? When I watched my mother almost die from the stress of your betrayal. When I saw you choose your girlfriend over your wife having a heart attack. When I realized that you're exactly the kind of man I never want to become. I started walking away, but his next words stopped me cold. You'll regret this, Lila. Both of you will. When you're struggling financially, when you need help, when life gets hard, you'll remember that you had a father who loved you, and you threw it away. I turned back to him, and for the first time in either of my lives, I wasn't afraid of Richard Chen. You know what, Dad? You're right. Life will get hard sometimes. But you know what we won't be struggling with? We won't be struggling to trust the people who claim to love us. We won't be struggling to figure out which version of you is real. And we won't be struggling to rebuild our lives every time you decide to blow them up. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was waiting this long to see you for who you really are. If I thought Dad's downfall was satisfying, Sophia's revenge was pure entertainment. It started with a phone call to Mom. Yes, Sophia called my mother directly. Mrs. Chen? This is Sophia Martinez. I think we should talk. Mom put the call on speaker so I could hear. We were both curious about what the homewrecker had to say for herself. Hello, Sophia. I'm not sure what we have to discuss. Actually, I think we have quite a lot to discuss. See, I just learned some very interesting things about your husband. Things I think you should know. Such as? Such as the fact that he's been lying to both of us. Mom and I exchanged glances. This was unexpected. I'm listening, Mom said carefully. Can we meet in person? I have documents I think you'll want to see. Against my better judgment, Mom agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown. I insisted on coming along. Sophia was already there when we arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a large manila envelope in front of her. She looked different than she had at the anniversary party, harder, more calculating. Thank you for coming, she said as we sat down. What do you want, Sophia? Mom asked directly. I want to destroy Richard Chen. Well, that was refreshingly honest. Why? I asked. Sophia opened the envelope and spread several documents across the table. Because he's been using both of us and I don't like being played. The documents were explosive. Bank statements showing Dad had taken out loans using Mom's name without her knowledge. Credit card applications with forged signatures. Investment accounts that had been liquidated and transferred to offshore holdings. He's been stealing from you for over a year, Sophia said. Not just the money from your father-in-law. He's been systematically draining your joint accounts and opening new lines of credit in your name. Mom stared at the papers. How did you get these? I used to work for a private investigation firm before I got into corporate consulting. When Richard started getting weird about money, I did some digging. And you didn't think to mention this during your affair? I asked pointedly. Sophia had the grace to look ashamed. I thought he was leaving you for me. I thought the money issues were just divorce-related complications. But he wasn't leaving, Mom. No, he was using me to have his cake and eat it too. Keep the wife for stability and social standing, keep the girlfriend for excitement, and keep stealing money from both of us to fund his lifestyle. Mom was still processing the financial documents. This says he took out a second mortgage on our house. Without your signature, Sophia confirmed. That's mortgage fraud. Why are you showing us this? Mom asked. Because when he dumped me, he threatened to ruin my career if I caused problems for him. He said he had connections that could blacklist me from every company in the state. So this is revenge. Partially. But it's also justice. You deserve to know what he's done to you financially. And you deserve to have ammunition for your divorce proceedings. I had to admit I was impressed. Sophia was thorough. What else do you have? I asked. She pulled out a tablet and showed us a video. It was security footage from Dad's office building, time-stamped during the hours he claimed to be in meetings with no cell service, while Mom was in the hospital. The footage showed Dad and Sophia in his office, very clearly not having a business meeting. There are more, Sophia said. Hours of footage. including audio of him talking about how he was going to manage your health crisis without disrupting his personal life. Mom's jaw tightened. He actually said that? He said a lot of things. About you, about your marriage, about his plans for the future, none of it flattering. I want copies of everything, Mom said. Already made. Sophia slid a USB drive across the table. But I want something in return. What? I want protection. If Richard tries to destroy my career, I want your grandfather's legal team to help me. Mom looked at me, then back at Sophia. You realize you're asking the family you helped betray to protect you from the man you betrayed us with? I realize the irony. But I also realize that Richard Chen is a sociopath who destroys everyone around him. I was stupid enough to get involved with him, but I'm smart enough to know when to cut my losses. And you think we should trust you? I think you should use me. I have information that can help you, and I have motivation to make sure he can't hurt anyone else. Mom was quiet for a long moment. Finally, I'll speak to my father-in-law about the legal protection. In exchange, I want complete cooperation with our attorneys and full disclosure of anything else you know about Richard's activities. Deal. As we were leaving the coffee shop, I couldn't help but ask, Sophia, were you ever actually interested in Dad, or was this all calculated? She paused. Honestly, I was attracted to his confidence and his apparent financial stability. But the more I got to know him, the more I realized he was just a middle-aged man, having a midlife crisis who was willing to lie to everyone to get what he wanted. Including you. Including me. And that's what I get for thinking I could play in the big leagues without understanding the game. After she left, Mom and I sat in the car processing what had just happened. Did we just team up with Dad's mistress? I asked. I think we just weaponized Dad's mistress, Mom corrected. That's actually pretty brilliant. Your grandfather's going to have a heart attack when we tell him? No, he's going to be impressed. He's a businessman. He understands strategic alliances. Mom laughed, and I realized it was the first time I'd heard her really laugh since the anniversary party. You know what the best part is? She said. What? Richard created this situation entirely by himself. If he'd just been honest, if he'd just asked for a divorce instead of lying and cheating and stealing, none of this would be happening. But then he wouldn't have gotten to feel like he was outsmarting everyone. True. And now everyone's outsmarting him instead. As we drove home, I felt a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in either of my lives. Dad had spent so much time manipulating people, playing them against each other, thinking he was the smartest person in the room. Turns out, when you treat everyone like disposable tools, eventually those tools decide to work together against you. The final court hearing was scheduled for a Thursday in November. Mom had been preparing for weeks with her legal team. Yes, team, plural. Because grandfather had spared no expense in assembling the most formidable divorce attorneys in the state. Dad, meanwhile, was representing himself because he could no longer afford a lawyer. The morning of the hearing, I straightened Mom's tie. She'd decided to wear a power suit that made her look like the CEO she was about to become of her own life, and gave her a pep talk. Remember, you're not the woman who is married to Richard Chen anymore. You're Maria Chen, artist, mother, and badass survivor. When did you become the parent in this relationship? She asked, but she was smiling. The moment I realized I was more mature than Dad. Grandfather picked us up in his town car, and we rode to the courthouse in comfortable silence. The past few months had transformed all of us. Mom had started painting again and was already planning her gallery. I had been accepted to my first choice college with a full scholarship. Funny how much easier applications are when you're not stressed about whether your father will actually pay. And grandfather had gained the family he'd been missing for years. Dad was already in the courtroom when we arrived, looking like he'd slept in his suit, which, given his current living situation, he probably had. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Martinez. The irony of the judge's last name was not lost on any of us. The proceedings started with financial disclosures. Mom's attorney, a sharp woman named Catherine Ross, laid out the evidence of Dad's embezzlement, fraud, and financial abuse with surgical precision. Your Honor, the defendant has systematically stolen from both his wife and his minor daughter over a period of 2 years. He forged signatures, opened unauthorized accounts, and transferred marital assets to personal holdings without his wife's knowledge or consent. Dad's attempt at a defense was pathetic. Your Honor, any financial irregularities were the result of business investments made for the benefit of the family. My wife was aware of my investment activities. Mr. Chen, Judge Martinez said dryly, do you have documentation showing your wife's consent to these investments? The consent was verbal. I see, and can you explain why these verbal agreements were never documented? Why your wife's signature appears to have been forged on multiple documents? And why the proceeds from these investments were deposited into accounts solely under your control? Dad fumbled through some papers. The documentation is incomplete due to the rushed nature of these proceedings. It was painful to watch, honestly, like seeing someone try to stop a freight train with a fly swatter. But the real fireworks started when Sophia took the stand. Catherine Ross walked her through the timeline of the affair, the financial irregularities she'd discovered, and the recordings of Dad's conversations about his plans to abandon Mom if she became too much of a burden. Miss Martinez, Catherine said, in your professional opinion as someone with investigative experience, what would you call Mr. Chen's pattern of behavior? Systematic financial abuse combined with emotional manipulation, Sophia answered clearly. He uses people's trust and affection to gain access to resources, then discards them when they're no longer useful. Did he ever discuss his wife's health issues with you? Yes. He said that if she became seriously ill, he would need to reassess his priorities because he couldn't be tied down to a sick woman. The courtroom was dead silent. Dad's face was red with either embarrassment or rage. And did he discuss his daughter with you? He said Lila was too smart for her own good, and that he would need to manage her expectations about college funding because he had other priorities for that money. I watched Dad realize that his entire defense strategy, playing the devoted family man who made some mistakes, had just been demolished by his own words. When it was Dad's turn to cross-examine Sophia, he made the mistake of trying to attack her credibility. Miss Martinez, isn't it true that you pursued a relationship with me for financial gain? No, that's not true. Didn't you tell me that you were attracted to successful, wealthy men? I told you I was attracted to confident, stable men. I didn't realize at the time that you were neither confident nor stable, just manipulative. You're lying to protect yourself. Mr. Chen, Judge Martinez interrupted, you will address the witness respectfully or I will hold you in contempt. Dad's final mistake was calling me to the stand, thinking I would defend him out of family loyalty. Lila, he said, his voice taking on the fake warmth he used when he wanted something. You know I love you and your mother. Haven't I always provided for our family? Which family? I asked. The one with Mom and me or the one you were planning with Sophia? I never planned to leave you. Really? Because I have recordings of you telling Sophia that you were going to divorce Mom as soon as my college was paid for, so you wouldn't have to worry about custody or support issues. Dad's face went white. You recorded private conversations? I documented evidence of financial crimes and emotional abuse, just like any good citizen should. Lila, I'm your father. Are you? Because fathers don't steal their children's college funds. Fathers don't abandon their wives during medical emergencies. And fathers don't lie to their families about everything from their income to their whereabouts. I looked directly at him. You taught me what a father shouldn't be. I guess I should thank you for that lesson. The judge's ruling was swift and comprehensive. Dad got nothing. No alimony, no share of the house, no access to any joint accounts. He was ordered to repay all stolen funds, faced criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement, and was required to attend court-ordered therapy before he could have any unsupervised contact with me. Not that I was planning to take him up on that. Mom got everything: the house, full custody, all remaining assets, and a protective order preventing Dad from contacting her directly. As we left the courthouse, Dad tried one last manipulation. Lila, please, I know I made mistakes, but I'm still your father. Don't throw away our relationship over this. Our relationship was thrown away the moment you chose lies over truth, theft over honesty, and selfishness over family. I can change. No, Dad, you can't. Because changing would require you to admit you were wrong, and you're still standing here trying to convince me that everyone else is the problem. So that's it? You're just going to walk away from me? I stopped and turned to face him one last time. Dad, you walked away from us a long time ago. I'm just finally walking in the opposite direction. 2 years later, I was home from college for Mom's gallery opening. The space was small but perfect, filled with her paintings and the work of other local artists. The walls that used to display family photos of lies and manipulation now showcased beauty, truth, and genuine emotion. Nervous? I asked Mom as she adjusted a painting for the 100th time. Terrified, she admitted. What if nobody comes? What if they hate everything? What if it's exactly the success you deserve? Grandfather interrupted, walking up with champagne and his biggest smile. Maria, the space is beautiful. Your work is extraordinary, and half the city is already here. He was right. The gallery was packed with friends, neighbors, art enthusiasts, and even some of Mom's former colleagues who had come to support her new venture. I can't believe this is real, Mom said, watching people admire her paintings. Believe it, I said. You built this. You chose to start over, to pursue your dreams, to bet on yourself. And look what happened. Sophia appeared at our group, looking professional and confident in her new role as Mom's business manager. Yes, we'd hired Dad's former mistress to help run Mom's gallery. The irony was delicious. Maria, the art critic from the Tribune, wants to interview you, Sophia said, and we've already sold 3 paintings. 3? Mom's eyes went wide. The landscape series is particularly popular. I think we're going to need to discuss expanding your studio space. As Mom went off to her interview, Grandfather and I stood watching the crowd. Any word from Richard? He asked quietly. Not in over a year. Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in another state. Sophia says he tried to contact her a few months ago, asking for a character reference for some job application. Did she provide one? She told them he was the most dishonest person she'd ever met and that they should run a thorough background check. Grandfather chuckled. Remind me never to get on that woman's bad side. She's actually been amazing. Mom was worried about hiring her at first, but Sophia's been completely honest about everything. I think almost destroying her career taught her the value of integrity. And your father taught all of us the cost of losing it. I spotted a familiar figure near the entrance and felt my stomach clench. Dad stood in the doorway, looking older and more worn than I remembered. He was scanning the crowd, probably looking for us. Grandfather, I said quietly, don't look now, but we have an uninvited guest. Grandfather followed my gaze and his expression hardened. Should I call security? No, let me handle this. I walked over to Dad, who looked nervous when he saw me approaching. Hello, Lila. Dad, what are you doing here? I heard about your mother's gallery opening. I wanted to see how she was doing. She's doing great, better than she's ever been, actually. That's good. She deserves to be happy. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. Dad looked around the gallery, taking in the success, the crowds, the obvious prosperity. Lila, I know I don't have the right to ask, but do you think there's any chance your mother would speak to me? I'd like to apologize properly. For what? For everything. For the lying, the cheating, the stealing. For choosing my selfish desires over my family. For being the kind of man who destroyed everything good in his life. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or calculation. Instead, I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse. Dad, do you know why I can't forgive you? Because I hurt you and your mother. No, I mean, yes, you did hurt us. But the reason I can't forgive you is because you taught me that love is conditional. You taught me that when people become inconvenient or difficult, you abandon them. You taught me that promises are just words you use to get what you want. Dad's eyes filled with tears. Lila, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are, but being sorry doesn't undo the damage. Being sorry doesn't give me back the father I thought I had. And being sorry doesn't erase the fact that when Mom needed you most, you chose someone else. I know I can't undo what I did, but maybe we could start over. Maybe I could try to be the father you deserved? I looked across the gallery at Mom, who was glowing as she discussed her artwork with potential buyers. I looked at Grandfather, who was charming a group of collectors with stories about supporting local artists. I looked at the life we'd built without Dad, honest, stable, loving. Dad, I hope you find peace. I hope you find a way to be happy and honest and good to the people in your life. But I also hope you understand that some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. So you'll never forgive me? I'll never forget what you taught me about choosing myself and the people who truly love me over the people who only love me when it's convenient for them. Dad nodded slowly, tears running down his face. I understand. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, Lila. I watched him leave the gallery, walking out into the night alone. For a moment, I felt sad for him. Not sorry enough to change my mind, but sad that he'd chosen a path that led to such complete isolation. Then Sophie appeared at my elbow. Was that Richard? Yeah. How do you feel? Free, I said, and realized I meant it completely. Mom's voice carried across the gallery as she gave an impromptu speech to the crowd. 2 years ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered, but what I learned is that sometimes you have to lose everything that's false to find everything that's true. She raised her champagne glass. To new beginnings, to chosen family, and to the courage to start over when starting over is the only way to start living. The crowd toasted, and I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the champagne. This was what happiness felt like. This was what family felt like. This was what choosing love over convenience, truth over comfort, and integrity over ease could build. I'd been given a second chance at life, and I'd used it to save not just my mother, but all of us. We'd built something beautiful from the ashes of Dad's destruction. As I watched Mom laugh with Grandfather and Sophia over some shared joke, I realized that revenge had never been the point. Justice had been the point. Love had been the point. And in the end, the best revenge was the life we'd built without him. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business law, specializing in financial crimes and family protection. My senior thesis on patterns of financial abuse in domestic relationships was published in a law journal and cited by victim advocacy groups. Mom's gallery had expanded to 3 locations and become a cornerstone of the local art community. She'd also started a nonprofit providing art therapy for women recovering from abusive relationships. Grandfather had officially adopted Mom as his daughter and named her heir to a significant portion of his estate. They spent Sunday mornings painting together in the studio he'd built for her. Sophia had completed her MBA and become Mom's full business partner. She'd also gotten engaged to a very nice accountant who knew her whole story and loved her anyway. Dad? Dad sent a card to my college graduation. I never opened it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret being so harsh with my father, if I think I should have given him another chance. The answer is simple. I gave him 23 years of chances in my first life, and he chose to waste every single one. Some people deserve second chances. Some people deserve forgiveness. Some people deserve the benefit of the doubt. But some people deserve exactly what they give to others.